Good afternoon, everyone. This is Alan Murabayashi speaking to you from Photo Shelter Worldwide headquarters in New York City. We have a great webinar today with Eduardo Angel talking about his approach to developing an online portfolio. Before we start, I should let you know a couple housekeeping notes. On the right of your screen, you should see a GoToWebinar control panel, and from that panel, you can ask us questions. We'll be going through and answering as many as we can. And one of the people that'll be answering those questions today is our co-sponsor, Brenda Hipscher from X-Rite. Let's say hello to Brenda. Hey, Brenda.
Hey everybody, thanks for coming today. We're very happy to be part of this webinar today. We're always delighted to work with Photo Shelter to co-sponsor webinars, and today's very special for us to have our ColorChecker member Eduardo Angel with us. And thank you so much for having us today. We'll be sending out you folks some special offers in an email in the next couple of days. So look for that email at the same address that you used to register for the webinar. And Alan and Eduardo, thank you again for this opportunity.
Thank you, Brenda. There's always some pretty good discounts on their products, and as a personal user of X-Rite products, I can tell you they're the good stuff, the real deal. Our presenter today has just returned from 63 days of straight travel around the world, setting a new personal record, he told me. Eduardo Angel is an independent technology consultant, educator, and visual storyteller based in Brooklyn, New York, but a worldwide traveler. He's also a member of the Tenpa's Visual Artists and the X-Rite Colorati program. He's a beta tester since version 0 of Lightroom and Premiere Pro. He contributes to the Canon Digital Learning Center and on his blog, and he holds workshops around the world, including one in Southeast Asia later this year. I mean, he's kind of the ultimate freelancer. He's the kind of guy we love to talk to. Eduardo, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
We wanted to sort of set up the expectation of what we're talking about today. This isn't going to be a kind of step-by-step how to use Lightroom, but rather an approach for how to go through and edit an online portfolio.
Right. So this is basically how I take a bunch of images that I shoot on assignment and narrow that down to a small group of images for my online portfolio and for client delivery. So this is just my very personal process on how I approach this.
And the types of clients that you're dealing with, you know, you have commercial clients and editorial clients. I assume the number of photos that you're taking for any assignment varies kind of widely. Are you always trying to get down to, you know, 20 or 30 representative images, or does it really depend on the client?
Yeah, we'll talk later about my magic number, which is 1%, but we will
Okay.
talk about that kind of
All
in the
right.
middle of the webinar.
Yeah. Let's go. Let's do it.
All right. So can you see my screen, I guess? So here's my website and my Twitter account. So if you follow me, I'm always posting new tricks, new tips, things I learn, mistakes I make, and the solutions I find, and all the workshops and all the events, all the activities I'm involved with. So that's, you already mentioned all these, my bio. So before we even start editing our images, I truly believe that we need to have some concepts very clear. So the first one, for me at least, is what is your market niche? And obviously I cannot answer that for anyone but me, but that's really important. What is exactly what your concentration is? The second thing is, who is your target audience? So for example, are these pictures to share with friends and family, or are these pictures for a specific client? Are you trying to get more work, related work, or this is something that is this like a long-term project? So that will define your audience. What is your brand about? The brand is everything you do. At least that's how I see it. Everything you write, everything your pictures, your website, all your content should be consistent, and your images should be part of, obviously, part of that brand. And finally, what is the story? And that's really what this webinar is about finding a story, a theme within a group of images and running with that.
Eduardo,
So
we talk to photographers a lot about these very 4 points. And I think it's hard for photographers to kind of shift out of their creative mode and kind of think about their marketing mode. How long did it take you as sort of a freelancer to kind of isolate what was important to you to really build your business as an independent freelancer?
I honestly never had a big problem with that. Somehow my brain is wired to be right in between the two. Because I understand that if you're not making money, the way at least I see it, if you're not making money, it's not a business, it's a hobby. So you really need to concentrate on the marketing efforts. Also, as a storyteller, you can have a great idea, you can have an impeccable execution, but if no one knows about it, it's pointless. So you need to make sure that the distribution is part of the process. I often joke that there's always photographers always plan the pre-production, the production, and the post-production, but they often miss the last part, which is marketing and or the distribution of the content. So that's, yeah, I know you push these 4 concepts a lot, and I really appreciate your efforts. So very related to that, I believe that one of the most important skills that we can learn as photographers is to objectively edit down our images and visualize themes in our work. So let's move with the next one. So this image is from one of my 5-year-old nephew's books. I found it recently, and I think it's extremely relevant because as photographers, we are always telling stories, and as the image shows, we should have a great beginning that grabs the viewer's attention. Then there needs to be something really strong in the middle that re-engages the viewer. And finally, we also need to have something wonderful at the end that leaves them, I don't know, thinking about our work. So as this image shows, what happened first, what happened next, and what happened last should be part of our storytelling.
I love this slide, not only because it came from from a kid's book, but my best friend is a screenwriter, and screenwriters often think of stories in terms of the 3 acts, which is a very common storytelling structure. And I totally agree with you. I think like when we're editing down 1,000 photos or 3,000 photos, you're not always thinking about, okay, here's sort of the exposition, and here's a character or two in the story, and we're building kind of an arc so that it has a beginning, middle, and end. And too often I think we're just saying, oh, this is a pretty picture, and so we're going to put it next to this one.
You're absolutely right. I'm often invited to jury contests and to see student work, to review students' work. And most people throw all their best images together without thinking about the story, without thinking about grouping the images under, let's say, fashion or food or landscapes, for example, or even having separate personal and client portfolios. So that's what this is about, kind of like grouping images into different segments.
Yeah.
The next slide is going to throw some people off, but the reason I'm showing these is because when I was a kid, I used to play a lot of tennis. And one of the first things I learned was to always go back to the center of the court. So after you hit the ball, always go back to the center of the court. And so that's why the arrow pointing to the center of the court. I still use that analogy for editing. And you just like, wow, how? Well, the center of the court is the story to me. So you can have an awesome picture, you can have or two or three or four awesome pictures, but do they belong to the story? What is the story I'm trying to tell? And so that's the analogy for me. So let's get into this. The reason I'm showing all these pictures at the same time is I another personal story. Many years ago, I worked for a newspaper, the Savannah Morning News. And it was there that I realized that the printed space on the newspaper, in that case, was extremely limited. But the web galleries were endless. There was no limitation. But here's the catch. Right now, in 2013, people visit websites for 30 seconds in average. And most people watch videos for less than 90 seconds. So even though we don't have a space limitation, we need to keep in mind that people won't be watching our stuff for more than 30 seconds in general. So what can we say under that time? So this is what you were asking at the very beginning about the number. So 1%. On this specific assignment, 3 weeks in the Middle East, I shot about 1,500 pictures. So I deleted, and we will talk about deleting in a second, about 400. So I ended up with, let's say, 1,100. So then my job was to narrow that down to 1,100, to 100 images, which is about 7% of the original 1,500. That's okay. 100 images is fine for my online portfolio, but still way too many for a client. So I narrowed that down to about 20, 25 pictures, which is roughly 2%. And during this webinar, I'll be showing only 14 images, which is 1% of the total. And this number, 1%, for whatever reason, tends to be my, and again, this is all about my approach. This is Eduardo's way of doing things, my kind of like my gold standard. For whatever pictures I take, I try to pick 1% of the total, and that's the amount of images that I show to my client, that I deliver to my client. So these are the 12 images we will be discussing today.
When you receive a client brief, typically they're going to say, we want this type of image, or we want to convey this sort of mood. Do you think about creating a story before you go over to the location and start shooting, or does it kind of just happen organically and happen in the edit process for you?
I think it's a mix of both. I read a lot before I go to a new location. So I read history books, I travel books, stuff like Lonely Planet or similar books. So I try to understand the place. It is amazing that when you talk to locals and you show them that you know about their history, you know who the president is, you know about like the economy, it opens so many doors. It is a completely different way to approach a subject. So I definitely I land with an idea of what I want to get, but what I find is often different. I also have a little trick that I go to like a bookstore, a local bookstore, and I look at the postcards, and go to the postcards section, and I see how other photographers have captured the landscapes or the highlights of that place. And that gives me not only a sense of perspective, but also what has been done and how, and what's important for that specific place. So it's a mix. I go with an idea, with a very clear understanding of what I'm about to see, but also I find I let the serendipity run freely. So how do I narrow this all these 1,500 pictures down to 12? And so I use stars, but not this kind. I use the Lightroom star rating system, and this is exactly how I work. So as soon as I get, I import all my images, so 1,500 pictures, blah. I very quickly, the first pass, the first edit is I rate my stars with 1, 2, and 3 stars. 1 means personal. So those are the pictures that you want to send to your mom, that you want to send to a friend, maybe someone that was really nice, the driver, the local guy, the whatever, someone at the hotel. Those are the pictures that you're gonna email or you're gonna share with people, but that certainly are not portfolio quality. 2 stars are pictures that are good, that are nice, nothing wrong with them, but I know that I have probably something better, or I photograph that subject again later on, or they're good but not great. And 3 stars are my very good images. So that's those are probably the keepers. That's the first pass. The second pass, I only look at the 2 and 3 star images and then upgrade some of the 2s and downgrade some of the 3s down to 2. My 5 star, it's interesting because I never use 5. It's kind of like a philosophical approach because I truly believe that there is always room for improvement. So I don't use 5. 4, I use only 4 when I'm putting together, let's say I'm putting, I don't know, best pictures of 2012 or 13. So I'm putting different groups I'm looking at different portfolios, and I'm trying to select the best of those portfolios. So I'm looking at the 3 stars, and then I upgrade some of those to 4 stars. X means in Lightroom means reject, and X is your friend. Reject is your friend. So in Lightroom, you mark your images with X, you go to photo, delete rejected photos, and Lightroom will take care of trashing everything for you. Delete, that's one of my biggest pieces of advice today and everywhere I talk is rejected pictures, at least for me, mean deleted pictures. I don't keep thousands of images just in case. So if it's not sharp, delete it. If you have 3 or 4 shots of the same subject, delete a couple. Make space for newer and better work.
Interesting.
So this is an example of my 1 stars. These are pictures that you can see. I don't know if you can see my mouse. But this is there was an opening with David Alan Harvey. There's Bobby Lane here. There's David Burnett. The restaurant, Reflections, David Burnett again. So these are 1 star pictures that I want to send them back to them, and but these are not portfolio quality. This one with the 4 clowns is hard to explain, but that's another story. These are the 2 stars. These are the ones that are good, and in this case, I have 3 shots of the same person, but I'm still looking. In this case, this is on the second pass. That's when I'm gonna upgrade one of these. Most likely, I'm gonna upgrade one of these 3 to 3 stars, and so these are my 2 stars. These are some of my 3 stars, and so these are keepers for now, but not necessarily for the very final portfolio.
You know, as someone who shoots thousands of images on a given assignment, and someone who also spends a fair amount of time judging photo competitions, how do you kind of prevent visual fatigue from setting in when you're going through images after images? One of my personal problems is, you know, shooting 2,000 and then you're like, you just start missing things.
Right. So, and that's, I believe, is one of the last slides. But like, let's say it now. I often work with a photo editor. I really enjoy working with other people, collaborating, because sometimes you are emotionally attached it's not only the fatigue, but you're attached to certain images that were very hard to capture, or the access was like very, very, very difficult, or whatever it is. But at the end of the day, what matters is two things. It's a good image, A, and B, is it part of the story? So having someone working with you, it really helps. In terms of fatigue, I guess that's I mean, I don't know. Just like
Yeah.
that's the way to do it. I try to edit as soon as I'm done. That's for sure. If I wait too long, not only it's harder later to recall the images and add captions and keywords and all that, but I'm already on something else. My mind is working on another assignment or another problem. So I do it right away.
Paul has a technical question about whether you maintain more than one catalog in Lightroom for all your images.
Well, that's a classic question, and I do not. In my case, I do not. The reason is because that, as I said before, let's say I'm organizing my best images for 2013. I want to be able to look at all the assignments I shot and all the personal and all the projects and everything else. If I have several different portfolio or several different catalogs, I'm only looking at that specific catalog.
Mm-hmm.
The only time that I probably would advise someone to have a different catalog is when let's say you have a day job shooting commercial stuff. You're shooting, I don't know, bottles of wine, let's say, or artwork. And then on weekends, you're shooting weddings. So they're very different. You generally won't mix them, and one thing has really nothing to do with the other. You probably won't mix them in a portfolio. In that case, and also you are, in both cases, you are shooting like a massive volume of images. So in that case, yeah, sure, just keep two. But in my case, no, I just, and because I delete, as I said, I'm a very deleting is a good word in my workflow. So I don't have 300,000 images in my catalog. So that's
that would be me. That's my problem.
yeah, deleting is the problem. These are my 4 stars. These are some of the, so after I picked my images, I kind of like, now I have a nice and tight group of images I would like to start sequencing. And a few things here. We're going for quality over quantity. And we also need, and this is important, we also need to differentiate the personal favorites versus commercially viable work. So what does that mean? You picture is great, you love it. It was freezing. You waited for 4 hours under the freezing rain. It was impossible to get. You had to go back 5 times. It doesn't matter. If the image is good, that's the most important part. And then the second most important part is if it belongs to that specific story. So is this picture gonna get you more work? Is the client gonna be happy? Is telling the clients, is delivering the client's message? That's what matters. That's the commercially viable part. The personal favorites, you can have as many as you want and you can keep them somewhere else. So this is the same screen grab from before, but I just wanted to show you how at this point, when I have my 3 and 4 stars, how I start sequencing them to build my story. So why are you, can you see the mouse? I don't know if you can see my mouse.
I can see it on a larger screen for sure.
Okay, yeah. So I'm on slide 45. So why, for example, whoops, I did something bad here. Why are these 4 images together? So it could be based on the story. They go together because they transition into a new chapter, as I call them, or it could be because I like the geometry or the color or the exposure. So let's take a look at this. I'm looking at the mosque from the outside. So now I'm in the mosque, and the lamp is the main thing here on the Muscat in Oman. And then I'm looking at the lamp and someone photographing that lamp with, or the lamps with an iPad. Then I just happened to be there when they were fixing some of the lamps. So that was, to me, that was interesting, that was different. And you have this very similar but unrelated. These are, as you can see, this is Abu Dhabi, this is in Muscat, two completely different places. It doesn't matter where the pictures were taken, we're telling a story. And then detail, architectural detail. Now for this one, these two pictures were shot on completely different days, like different cities, but this boat is very similar to this one. So that's why I put them together. In this case, this picture was taken, this is the 0001. This picture I took at the gate at the Kennedy Airport before actually I was on the plane, and I was already taking pictures. And this is the crew, all the crew members getting on board. And then this one, it's two females, this all a group of females with the burqas, black burqas, and this other picture that I waited for a while to have someone walking in the background as well. So that's why these four go together. That's why these two go together. That's why these four go together. The next screen grab is the same screen grab, but I'm just explaining. I just wanted to explain why these two. I already explained this one. And for example, here the 55. I have this was kind of like a giant chess game, and the horizon line and the ocean. And the next picture I want to keep, that's how the picture was taken. So it's the same, almost the same horizon line. It looks like it was the same picture, even though it's not. And that's why I like this. The sky, the blue sky, the water is a continuation of this image. And that's how I start grouping the images. I also, as you can see, after I have, just to recap, after I do my 1 stars for personal, my 2 stars for good, my 3 stars for very good, once I'm looking at my 3 stars, I start grouping them. And I can put my let's say my landscapes on this part, on this end, and then my food. I take a lot of pictures of food for whatever reason here, and then I put some of the architecture here and the portraits over here. And then I start selecting the strongest images within a group of images. That helps me a lot. That's obviously very subjective, like why these images go together. And I like to think about this process as similar as pairing food and wine. Sometimes you want one element to complement another, and sometimes you want one element to overpower the other. So it is certainly very subjective and a personal decision. So from the 12 images that I selected for today, we can start our story with this one. So I feel this is an interesting, clean, minimalistic image that combines art, architecture, religion. So I want the viewer to start with this image and think something like, well, let's see what this is about. What's next? The next image could be this. What has put, in my opinion, Dubai on the map is definitely its amazing architecture and urban development. So I would like to include a white shot, like as we called in motion, an establishing shot of the city. And then, so showing the skyline, and then something a closer shot that includes the construction in progress. So like the finished buildings and the ongoing, like never-ending construction in progress. An interesting fact is that they are building Dubai and Abu Dhabi so fast that even Google Maps is inaccurate. It's never it's never accurate. It's like it's amazing how fast they build. It's incredible. So I showed you this. So this is the city. We start here. We see what we assume is a mosque. It's a building, and then we get to the city with the skyline, and we get closer. We see the buildings and we see the construction going on. And now I want to take you inside. I want to show you inside one of these amazing buildings.
Love
So
this
in
shot.
this case is the Burj Al Arab, the only 7-star hotel in the world, and I understand one of the most expensive ones. I had the privilege to see and photograph the Royal Suite or something like that. It was, I mean, mind-blowing. I certainly didn't stay here. That's for sure.
So
And,
let me ask you a question about this photo
yes,
since we're on it. I mean, the colors are so vibrant. What sort of color profiling tools are you using? Are you using things in the field, or do you wait till you get back to the studio?
I mean, and that was a later um, a later slide, but when possible and depending on the situation, I use my ColorChecker Passport. So on location. So because that allows me to very quickly set my white balance, my custom white balance when I get back to the studio. Sometimes it's not possible. Sometimes you're on like shooting something. We'll see some pictures later of like an Omani bullfighting that's impossible to do. But certainly when I'm shooting interiors and I'm shooting food, like I'm using my ColorChecker Passport. I just one picture and done. And then I create my custom white balance using Lightroom when I get back to the office, to the studio. Did that answer the question?
Yep, no, that's great.
Okay. So the next one, so we are inside, and now we can use something like this. And this is an image of a sunset on a mirror, and I feel it works well as a transition. So it closes in my story, in my mind, it closes the architecture group and starts the landscapes part of our story. So then after this one, we could use a couple of amazingly beautiful desert pictures like this one, kind of another establishing shot, and another one where you're actually closer to it. And so, and then this one, where now we can include a person. So far, we haven't shown any people, but in this one, so no people, a little bit of sand and people. So now we include a person. And this image, in this case, for this story, can work as a transition between the desert and our portraits part of the story. As an interesting side note, I shot most of these images with a Panasonic GH3. It was the very first time I was using a Panasonic camera. And the story behind why I ended up using that camera would take a whole webinar. But if you're interested, I wrote an article. It's on my blog that sums up my impressions about the Panasonic system, which is I was actually very impressed with it, and it's my field report on that system. And when I mean the video, the quality is impressive. So if you're interested, go to my website and check it out. Now we can. In this part of the story, we can concentrate on portraits. So we can have, he was my driver and my guide, and we can concentrate on the friendly and not so friendly faces, and then we continue with the portrait. So we have these close-ups. We have males walking in the evening and just like enjoying an afternoon stroll, and then photographing an Omani woman. This was really hard to do. I mean, that was part of the assignment, and it was really hard to do because not only you're technically not supposed to photograph women, but also I wanted to capture a woman using technology. That was part of what I wanted to say. So to get that, that's just I really had a hard time. And I like this picture because it's clean and it shows the architecture. It shows obviously a woman using a cell phone. And I had a bunch of images related, similar images to this one. But what I think it makes this image is this guy standing in the back, and that silhouette.
I love that.
And the architecture, and the very clean foreground, and just that. So your eye goes just immediately to this part of the image, which is because of the contrast between the white cell phone and the black background. And that's what I wanted to show, how these countries are very developed in terms of technology in many aspects. And then you could end this story with a kid bullfighting in Oman. And I love this image, and that's why I would like to use it as my closing image. I would like to leave the viewer asking for more, and that's important for photographers to kind of like try to achieve that. Like when the slideshow or the portfolio presentation is over, what you want, the reaction you want is like, is that it? Like, do you have more? That's what you want, and not, oh God, 47 more to go. Okay,
Right.
let's do this. Let's take a coffee break here. So this was an amazing experience. I was traveling with a very good friend. We were driving from Dubai to Oman, and he saw a bunch of cars and people on the road. And so we stopped, and he's Omani. He's from Oman, and he had never seen Omani bullfighting. So we had about 10, 15 minutes to get there, down, get all the equipment ready, shoot, and done. And it was obviously, to make things more dramatic, it was almost sunset, so the light was changing extremely quickly. This is one of the instances where I couldn't and I wouldn't use a ColorChecker Passport. Any other instance I would, because especially if I'm shooting in a controlled lighting environment, I certainly would do that. So just to recap this part, I select my best images, my 3 to 4 stars, and I group them by theme. So my landscapes in one side, something I forgot to mention is that you don't need to do this step. You don't need to, but something that I personally have found that helps me a lot is, once I have my 3 stars, I create a collection in Lightroom. And there are a few reasons, but the main reason to work with a collection is that I can simply remove the weakest images without changing the rating. So they stay 3-star or 2-star or 4-star, whatever it is. But I just remove them. I don't delete them from the collection. I just remove them. Yeah. So if I have, let's say, my goal is to have 25 pictures, and I have 29. So I know I need to kill 4. If it's a folder, then I have to change the rating to hide them. But if it's a collection, I simply remove 4 pictures, and then I'm down to my 25. Then it's very easy to export or do whatever I need to do to that group of images. So that's kind of another little secret.
A couple workflow questions. You know, when you have those images starred, whether they're your 3 stars or your 4 stars, are you just doing a custom sort in Lightroom and just dragging them into different sequences to try them out?
Say that again.
How are you actually physically sequencing within Lightroom?
Oh, moving. I mean, moving the images literally. So if we go back to this,
The
I'm
thumbnail view, yeah.
literally dragging this image 52 and putting it here right next to 42, and
Gotcha.
dragging, and that's the advantage, another advantage of the collection. It allows you to easily shuffle and sort all these images by, it's called custom sorting. So it's not by rating, it's not by capture time, it's not by file name, it's by custom, it's by whatever you want.
I noticed that you also rename all your files, which is something that I've always wanted to do, but I never do. Is that something you're doing at Ingest to just kind of help identify the images more easily?
That's interesting. Because I'm often shooting with different cameras, at least, well, more than one for sure, and sometimes different models, and sometimes even different brands. First, I import everything, right? So I just, in this case, let's talk about this specific assignment. I import the 1500 pictures into one folder. Then I sort by capture time. So to do that successfully, you need to make sure that before you start shooting, the time and date settings on all systems are the same. That's not hard to do. Even if it's the wrong one, even if you're shooting for like time
Right.
zone difference, if you're shooting at in the evening and it says that it's 2 a.m., it doesn't matter. All the cameras are the same. That's what matters. Now, you import all the pictures, you dump all your stuff into one folder, and then you sort by capture time. I delete everything. That's what I said about the rejects. I reject. I get rid of all the pictures I don't want. In this case, 400 pictures, boom, gone forever. And now I'm down to 1100. At that point, I rename, because it doesn't make sense to rename stuff that I'm gonna delete later on.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
at that point, I rename my 1100 pictures. Sometimes, and it's as you can go and just Command A is select all, and F2 is rename. So just F2, just put you can create any kind of custom naming template, and then batch rename all of them. It takes maybe 4 seconds to rename 1500 or 1100 pictures or less.
Yep.
So in this case, as you can see, it was important to keep the different cities separate. So it doesn't matter, because they were captured in they are sorted in by capture time. So let's say that from 1 to 200 is Dubai, from 200 to 400 is Abu Dhabi, from 400 to 600 is I don't know, Sohar, something like that, and done. You just select those 200 images. The grid view is actually very helpful to do that. You select from here to here and batch rename, and done.
So I assume the actual pixel editing, the toning, and using the profiles that you build from the color checker, that occurs after you've made your final
That
edit,
you're
or
absolutely right on track.
okay.
So unlike many people, most people I know, I don't spend unnecessary time tweaking 1100 pictures.
Right.
I fine tune the final pictures. So I only know what my final pictures are at the end. So after I do all this process, now I know where actually, let's go back. Now I know at this point what let's go way back to see, these are the pictures I'm gonna tweak. So out of 1500, deleted 400, down to 1100, from 1100 to 100 pictures that I'm gonna post online. But priority is the client. So if I'm delivering, in this case, 12 pictures, these are the pictures I'm gonna work on.
Mm-hmm.
Now let's talk about that. Let's fast forward. And so, improving image quality. I'm lucky. I'm really lucky, because I learned photography shooting 35 millimeter slides, and I started my professional career shooting architecture on 4x5. So I was trained very early on to properly compose and expose on camera. So I do very little to my images, very little work. I also, and that's a personal preference, I also prefer to spend more time behind the camera and less time in front of the computer. So uh, it's I do very little, if any, retouching on my images. But that being said, there's always a tweak here and there that one wants to do. And the most important rule to follow, the golden rule to me, number one by far, is monitor calibration. So without that, any further step you make is simply irrelevant. If you cannot trust what you're seeing, then it doesn't matter. Just don't do anything because it doesn't matter. So monitor calibration is number one. Once you have that down, for the images, for the instances where you shot the ColorChecker Passport, and as I said, I try to do it as often as possible. Certainly, if I'm shooting interiors, if I have time, if I'm working with a controlled lighting situation, for sure, I'm using it. Then that allows me to quickly create my custom white balance. That step immediately saves a lot of time because let's say the hotel, the Burj Al Arab. So I shot, I don't know, 30, 40 images there. So the lighting conditions were pretty much identical. I shot one picture of the color checker. Once I set one image, my one custom white balance, I batch apply to the other 49 and I'm done with the custom white balance. Another, that's 1, 2, and 3. Number 4 is the custom ICC profile. So as I said before, if I'm shooting in a controlled lighting situation, I do a little bit of architectural photography, and then I create a custom camera profile with the Passport's software. So you can do it with standalone application, or you can do it with the Lightroom plugin, which is basically the same. Both are super easy. So in that case, I create a custom ICC profile. And tip number 5 to improve image quality is to if you're printing, if your output is print, then to make sure that you have the correct ICC profiles, the printer profiles. And if you're uploading to the web, if it's online delivery, just to make sure that you are embedding the proper color space. And that's an option that you have on export in Lightroom.
So I want to go back to number 4 because that's actually interesting for you since you shoot with different camera systems.
Right.
And to make sure that the colors from the Panasonic don't look different than the Canon. You don't want people to say, "Whoa, what happened? Did he switch cameras?"
Right.
You're delivering to the client, right?
Well, and that's always a challenge, regardless, because the sensors are different, the firmware is different, everything is different. So you cannot compare apples and apples. But the great thing about color management and the whole concept of color management is consistency. So if you can really understand by using a custom ICC camera profile, if you really understand how that GH3 captures colors and how that 7D captures colors and how that 5D Mark III captures colors. Those were the 3 cameras I was using. So now, okay, we understand, we really understand, we are using a custom profile for each. Now we also have a calibrated monitor. So we also can trust what we see. We can trust our eyes. Now we can try to make them closer. But we are making an informed decision, and that's the key here.
I like what you're saying about kind of color consistency is so key in delivering professional photos, because I think that sort of something as simple as like white balance, you know, the difference between an amateur photo and a professional photo often is like, you know, why didn't you neutralize the incandescent light above you?
And it's
and when you see like neutral photos, it looks so great. Yeah.
And it's so easy. I mean, it's just so easy. Even if you want to make an image warmer or cooler, for example, that's your artistic interpretation of that.
Right.
You need to start somewhere. You need to start knowing what where the gray is, no, and what white is and black and gray. So you need to start there. If you don't know, then how do you know what to add or which way to go? So to keep going here, I have just like 3 more slides or something like that. The next one is just behind the scenes, and that is right on track with what you were saying. So behind the scenes on like using the ColorChecker Passport on location. So if I'm shooting architecture, if I'm shooting food, if I'm shooting interiors, I'm definitely I create a lot of content, a lot of video tutorials for different companies. So in that case, you make sure that the color is right. It's working for architects and lighting designers and interior designers. It's not kind of close. It has to be exact. So these are like my behind the scene images, some of them. And some final tips about like, to improve your portfolio. Delete, as I said, don't keep images just in case or maybe later. That's not good. It will make it harder later on to find the good images. Like you have it, but you don't know where, and you have 17 pictures of the same thing. So just keep the 2 or 3 really good ones. Really understand and really understand the difference between a personal favorite versus a commercially viable image. So if this is for friends and family and this is just for fun, fine, no problem. Generally, you're not doing that. I mean, if you're a professional photographer and you have a business, you're probably not doing that all the time. So what are you trying to do here? Are you trying to sell this new project? Are you trying to get more work related to this assignment? Are you actually on assignment delivering the content to a client? Are you just improving your marketing efforts and then just like beefing up your portfolio? What are you doing? So that's what is the commercially viable part. Another tip, and I know it's kind of like has mixed. Some people hate keywords and some people love keywords. I love keywords because they really help me to streamline my process. I just type something and immediately it shows up. Sometimes you're looking for images to get a job. You're bidding for a job and then you're trying to show the client that you can do that job. And finding by memory, finding those images is extremely time consuming. Possible, but time consuming. So a system that relies on memory is really not a system. So add keywords and captions as soon as possible. And that the classic is next weekend. Believe me, that's not gonna happen. So do it as soon as possible. Something that you asked at the very beginning, like about the fatigue. If you're like editing all these images, how do you get over it? So my advice is to get a second opinion. And so that's point 4 and 5 are very related. If it's an important job, if you're really like rebranding your business and this is your brand new website, this is your main marketing tool, I definitely recommend hiring a photo editor. It's a great investment. It's almost as good as hiring a great accountant. It's like right there, hiring a great photo editor. And then someone who has a notion of not only is objective, but has a notion of what's the strongest, what kind of images are the strongest commercially. So
Right.
those are my tips. I mean,
I like that too, because what you were saying at the top about becoming emotionally attached to an image, and I had an opportunity to speak on a panel about photo contests at WPPI. And, you know, the thing is you can be swept up by if you're shooting a wedding, being swept up by the day yourself as a photographer and being like, wow, this is a great wedding, the couple's so great, and think that certain images are actually better than they are because you have a memory associated with taking that image.
Hmm.
And it's so important to, in a lot of cases, getting a second opinion from someone who wasn't there to say, yeah, that's really not that great an image.
The best exercise, the best kind of like test to prove that what you're saying and I'm saying is true is revisit an old portfolio, like your best 2007 images, and see what you think about them now. Some of them, some of them you still like them, but some of them are like, what was I thinking? What is this? I often find the opposite is true. Sometimes I'm just revisiting. I shot like for like 6 weeks in India many years ago, and I recently just browsing that folder, and I found images that I completely forgot I had that never made the final cut, and and that I like now. Like my sensibility is different. I have a different perspective. I mean, I hope that I'm better technically now than then. So your taste changes. So that's why a second opinion is also important. It's like being yourself a few years later, and and then just putting something a tighter portfolio together.
Now we're getting a lot of questions. You know, we raised this idea of the ICC camera profile.
Okay.
And so maybe we can spend just a little bit of time kind of talking about that. I think that the easiest way to answer that is, you know, when you were a kid and you say to yourself, is what I see as red what my friend sees as red, or is it what he sees as blue? You know, it's just
Right.
this kind of like mental gymnastics that you do. And it turns out that every sensor, even when it's from the same camera manufacturer, has slightly different tolerances, right? And so red isn't actually red when you have two of the same cameras next to each other. So the
Well,
ICC profile helps to fix that.
what the custom ICC camera profile does, it shows you exactly how that camera, that serial number camera, sees color. And if you look in like in the develop module at the very bottom, uh, uh, Adobe, the profile that you're using is an Adobe standard generic profile. So that's what Adobe thinks all the cameras in the universe see color, which is kind of highly inaccurate.
I want to be sure that we clear this up. The camera profiles made with camera calibration software are not ICC profiles. They are DNG profiles. And that's a very important distinction that we must make because
Sure.
these DNG profiles are useful with Adobe Lightroom and Adobe Camera Raw. I want to make sure that we're very, very clear that these camera profiles are DNG profiles.
ICC, by the way, is the International Color Consortium. So
That's right.
it's a group that works on defining what color is, and I guess they have very, very technical requirements for what you can call an ICC profile.
Right. What other questions related to the sequencing and stars and all that? Any?
Um, let's see, we have, I think you got to some about the keyword. Okay, so the other big one was, you know, you've shown a lot of great photos of people, and people are wondering when and how you get model releases, and if they're required by your clients.
It really depends. It really depends on the job. So you basically follow the photojournalism ethics rules of ethics. So like it depends if you're photographing on the street and how are you using these images, if it's for editorial or commercial work, blah blah blah. All the classic situation applies. Sometimes, depending on the client and depending on the job, you would hire talent, local talent, and that's the easy way to do it. But sometimes, if it's for editorial work, um, it's really up to the client and up to you how to manage how to handle the model releases. But
And
it
when you
really
go
case by
into
case.
when you go into somewhere like the Middle East, where there can be very strict policies regarding photography, are you sort of educating yourself before you go into, you know, a given city or a given hotel about what is allowed photographically, or are you kind of shooting from the hip and trying to get the image you want?
No, no. Again, I think that the key, to me at least, is like when you do your research. And when you are an educated traveler, when you can have an educated conversation with someone and they know that you know, it really opens like a lot of doors. It really changes the way you work, because they are like, okay, well, this guy is respectful, this guy's here to do a job, let's work with him. I also work with local what we call fixers or local guides that make your life easier, because they know where to go, they deal with the permits, they translate if needed. So that's a really smart way to do it. It's basically the same as working with a photo editor. It's like relying on professional people to do something that you cannot do as well, or that you can do as well, but it will take you much longer. So it's the same concept.
We have recorded this entire webinar, so if you missed parts of it or the audio dropped out, which happens occasionally with the GoToWebinar, it will be available on the PhotoShelter blog at blog.photoshelter.com, as well as on Eduardo's blog, as well as on the X-Rite blog. And I think on those, because there were so many questions about ICC profiles and the DNG profiles, we can probably add some links to all of our respective blogs to get more information on it. But it's so important, such an important part of your workflow as a photographer, that it's worth the time to sort of understand all of this stuff, and certainly worth the time to get a ColorChecker Passport and monitor calibration hardware and software to help you. But I want to thank Eduardo and Brenda for joining us today. So interesting to see everyone's approach to making great photographs and great storytelling. Thank you, Eduardo.
Great, and thank you, and feel free to, I'm posting something on my website tomorrow or the day after, so feel free to post the comments below. I'll reply right away, or to tweet the questions and I'll also reply right away. So just feel free to contact me with any questions.
Great, thank you for joining us today, everyone. We'll see you at the next PhotoShelter webinar. Bye-bye.
Thank you.